Letter case. Letter case is the distinction between the letters that are in larger uppercase or capitals, or more formally majuscule, and smaller lowercase or more formally minuscule in the written representation of certain languages. The writing systems that distinguish between the upper and lowercase have two parallel sets of letters, with each letter in one set usually having an equivalent in the other set. The two case variants are alternative representations of the same letter. They have the same name and pronunciation and are treated identically when sorting in alphabetical order. Letter case is generally applied in a mixed case fashion, with both upper and lowercase letters appearing in a given piece of text for legibility. The choice of case is often prescribed by the grammar of a language or by the conventions of a particular discipline. In orthography, the uppercase is primarily reserved for special purposes, such as the first letter of a sentence or of a proper noun called capitalization or capitalized words, which makes the lowercase the more common variant in regular text. In some contexts, it is conventional to use one case only. For example, engineering design drawings are typically labeled entirely in uppercase letters, which are easier to distinguish individually than the lowercase when space restrictions require that the lettering be very small. In mathematics, on the other hand, letter case may indicate the relationship between mathematical objects, with uppercase letters often representing superior objects, e.g. X could be a mathematical set containing the generic member X. Terminology. The terms uppercase and lowercase may be written as two consecutive words connected with a hyphen uppercase and lowercase, particularly if they pre-modify another noun, or as a single word uppercase and lowercase. These terms originated from the common layouts of the shallow drawers called type cases used to hold the movable type for letterpress printing. Traditionally, the capital letters were stored in a separate shallow tray or case that was located above the case that held the small letters. Majuscule, less commonly, for paleographers, is technically any script whose letters have very few or very short ascenders and descenders, or none at all. For example, the majuscule scripts used in the Codex Vaticanus Graecus 1209 or the Book of Kells. By virtue of their visual impact, this made the term majuscule an apt descriptor for what much later came to be more commonly referred to as uppercase letters. Minuscule refers to lowercase letters. The word is often spelled minuscule by association with the unrelated word miniature and the prefix mini. This has traditionally been regarded as a spelling mistake since minuscule is derived from the word minus, but is now so common that some dictionaries tend to accept it as a non-standard or variant spelling. Minuscule is still less likely, however, to be used in reference to lowercase letters. Typographical considerations. The glyphs of lowercase letters can resemble smaller forms of the uppercase glyphs restricted to the base band, e.g. C/C and S/SCF, small caps, or can look hardly related, e.g. D/D and G/G. Here is a comparison of the upper and lowercase variants of each letter included in the English alphabet. The exact representation will vary according to the typeface and font used. Typographically, the basic difference between the majuscules and minuscules is not that the majuscules are big and minuscules small, but that the majuscules generally have the same height, although depending on the typeface, there may be some exceptions, particularly with Q and sometimes J having a descending element. Also, various diacritics can add to the normal height. There is more variation in the height of the minuscules, as some of them have parts higher ascenders or lower descenders than the typical size. Normally B, D, F, H, K, L, T are the letters with ascenders, and G, J, P, Q, Y are the ones with descenders. In addition, with old-style numerals still used by some traditional or classical fonts, 6 and 8 make up the ascender set, and 3, 4, 5, 7, and 9 the descender set. Bicameral script. Writing systems using two separate cases are bicameral scripts. Languages that use the Latin, Cyrillic, Greek, Coptic, Armenian, Elam, Warring Seti, Cherokee, Bulgare and Osage scripts use letter cases in their written form as an aid to clarity and legibility. Another bicameral script, which is not used for any modern languages, is Deseret. The Georgian alphabet has several variants, and there were attempts to use them as different cases, but the modern written Georgian language does not distinguish case. Many other writing systems make no distinction between majuscules and minuscules, a system called unicameral script or unicase. This includes most syllabic and other non-alphabetic scripts. In scripts with a case distinction, lowercase is generally used for the majority of text, capitals are used for capitalization, and emphasis when bold is not available. Acronyms and particularly initialisms are often written in all caps, depending on various factors. Capitalization. Capitalization is the writing of a word with its first letter in uppercase and the remaining letters in lowercase. Capitalization rules vary by language and are often quite complex, but in most modern languages that have capitalization, the first word of every sentence is capitalized, as are all proper nouns. Capitalization in English, in terms of the general orthographic rules independent of context, e.g., title vs. heading vs. text, is universally standardized for formal writing. Capital letters are used as the first letter of a sentence, a proper noun, or a proper adjective. The names of the days of the week and the names of the months are also capitalized, as are the first-person pronoun I and sometimes the interjection O, although the latter is uncommon in modern usage, with O being preferred. There are a few pairs of words of different meanings whose only difference is capitalization of the first letter. Honorifics and personal titles showing rank or prestige are capitalized when used together with the name of the person, for example, Mr. Smith, Bishop O'Brien, Professor Moore, or as a direct address, but normally not when used alone and in a more general sense. It can also be seen as customary to capitalize any word in some contexts, even a pronoun referring to the deity of a monotheistic religion. Other words normally start with a lowercase letter. There are, however, situations where further capitalization may be used to give added emphasis, for example in headings and publication titles, see below. In some traditional forms of poetry, capitalization has conventionally been used as a marker to indicate the beginning of a line of verse independent of any grammatical feature. In political writing, parody and satire, the unexpected emphasis afforded by otherwise ill-advised capitalization is often used to great stylistic effect, such as in the case of George Orwell's Big Brother. Other languages vary in their use of capitals. For example, in German all nouns are capitalized. This was previously common in English as well, mainly in the 17th and 18th centuries, while in Romance and most other European languages the names of the days of the week, the names of the months, and adjectives of nationality, religion, and so on normally begin with a lowercase letter. On the other hand, in some languages it is customary to capitalize formal polite pronouns, for example dem Danish, sei, ich in German, and vd, or a short for usted in Spanish. Informal communication, such as texting, instant messaging, or a handwritten sticky note, may not bother to follow the conventions concerning capitalization, but that is because its users usually do not expect it to be formal. Exceptional letters and digraphs. The German letter SS formerly existed only in lowercase. The orthographical capitalization does not concern SS, which generally does not occur at the beginning of a word, and in the all caps style it has traditionally been replaced by the digraph SS. Since June 2017, however, capital SS is accepted as an alternative in the all caps style. The Greek uppercase letter S has two different lowercase forms, S in word final position and S elsewhere. In a similar manner, the Latin uppercase letter S used to have two different lowercase forms, S in word final position and S elsewhere. The latter form, called the long S, fell out of general use before the middle of the 19th century, except for the countries that continued to use blackletter typefaces such as fracture. When blackletter type fell out of general use in the mid-20th century, even those countries dropped the long S. There is a complicated treatment of the Greek iota subscript. Unlike most languages that use Latin script and link the dotless uppercase I with the dotted lowercase I, Turkish language has both a dotted and dotless I, each in both upper and lower case. Each of the two pairs I/I and I/I represents a distinctive phoneme. In some languages, specific digraphs may be regarded as single letters, and in Dutch, the digraph ij/ij is even capitalized with both components written in uppercase, for example, ijsland rather than asland. In other languages, such as Welsh and Hungarian, various digraphs are regarded as single letters for collation purposes, but the second component of the digraph will still be written in lowercase even if the first component is capitalized. Similarly, in South Slavic languages whose orthography is coordinated between the Cyrillic and Latin scripts, the Latin digraphs lj/lj and j/nj and dz/dz are each regarded as a single letter like their Cyrillic equivalents lj/lj and j/nj and dzh/dzh. Unicode designates a single character for each case variant, i.e., uppercase, title case, and lowercase of the three digraphs. In the Hawaiian orthography, the akina is a phonemic symbol that visually resembles a left single quotation mark. Representing the glottal stop, the akina can be characterized as either a letter or a diacritic. As a unicase letter, the akina is unaffected by capitalization. It is the following letter that is capitalized instead. According to the Unicode standard, the akina is formally encoded as U+2bb, modifier letter turned comma, but it is not uncommon to substitute this with a similar punctuation character, such as the left single quotation mark or an apostrophe. Related phenomena. Similar orthographic and graphostylistic conventions are used for emphasis or following language-specific or other rules, including font effects such as italic type or oblique type, boldface, and choice of serif vs. sans serif. Typographical conventions in mathematical formulae include the use of Greek letters and the use of Latin letters with special formatting such as blackboard bold and blackletter. Some letters of the Arabic and Hebrew alphabets and some jamo of the Korean Hangul have different forms depending on placement within a word, but these rules are strict and the different forms cannot be used for emphasis. In the Arabic and Arabic-based alphabets, letters in a word are connected, except for several that cannot connect to the following letter. Letters may have distinct forms depending on whether they are initial connected only to the following letter, medial connected to both neighboring letters, final connected only to the preceding letter, or isolated connected to neither a preceding nor a following letter. In the Hebrew alphabet, 5 letters have a distinct form, see final form, that is used when they are word final. In Georgian, some authors use isolated letters from the ancient asymptavuli alphabet within a text otherwise written in the modern inceduli in a fashion that is reminiscent of the usage of uppercase letters in the Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic alphabets. In the Japanese writing system, an author has the option of switching between kanji, hiragana, katakana, and romaji. In particular, every hiragana character has an equivalent katakana character, and vice versa. Romanized Japanese sometimes uses lowercase letters to represent words that would be written in hiragana and uppercase letters to represent words that would be written in katakana. Some kana characters are written in smaller type when they modify or combine with the preceding sign yun or the following sign sakyun. Stylistic or specialized usage. In English, a variety of case styles are used in various circumstances: sentence case, ins case, tins case, tins case. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. A mixed case style in which the first word of the sentence is capitalized, as well as proper nouns and other words as required by a more specific rule. This is generally equivalent to the baseline universal standard of formal English orthography. In computer programming, the initial capital is easier to automate than the other rules. For example, On English language Wikipedia, the first character in page titles is capitalized by default. Because the other rules are more complex, substrings for concatenation into sentences are commonly written in mid-sentence case, applying all the rules of sentence case except the initial capital. Title case, capital case, headline style. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. A mixed case style with all words capitalized, except for certain subsets, particularly articles, and short prepositions and conjunctions defined by rules that are not universally standardized. The standardization is only at the level of house styles and individual style manuals. See further explanation below at SS headings and publication titles. Start case, first letter of each word capitalized. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Start case or initial caps is a simplified variant of title case. In text processing, title case usually involves the capitalization of all words irrespective of their part of speech. All caps, all uppercase. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. A unicase style with capital letters only. This can be used in headings in special situations, such as for typographical emphasis in text made on a typewriter. With the advent of the Internet, the all caps style is more often used for emphasis. However, it is considered poor netiquette by some to type in all capitals and said to be tantamount to shouting. Long spans of Latin alphabet text in all uppercase are more difficult to read because of the absence of the ascenders and descenders found in lowercase letters, which aids recognition and legibility. In some cultures it is common to write family names in all caps to distinguish them from the given names, especially in identity documents such as passports. Small caps. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, similar in form to capital letters, but roughly the size of a lowercase x. Small caps can be used instead of lowercase letters and combined with regular caps in a mixed case fashion. This is a feature of certain fonts, such as copperplate Gothic. According to various typographical traditions, the height of small caps can be equal to or slightly larger than the x height of the typeface. The smaller variant is sometimes called petite caps and may also be mixed with the larger variant. Small caps can be used for acronyms, names, mathematical entities, computer commands in printed text, business or personal printed stationery letterheads, and other situations where a given phrase needs to be distinguished from the main text. All lowercase. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. A unicase style with no capital letters. This is sometimes used for artistic effect, such as in poetry. Also commonly seen in computer languages and in informal electronic communications, such as SMS language and instant messaging, avoiding the shift key to type more quickly. Apple co-founder Steve Jobs used all lowercase in cursive in his signature. Headings and publication titles. In English language publications, various conventions are used for the capitalization of words in publication titles and headlines, including chapter and section headings. The rules differ substantially between individual house styles. The convention followed by many British publishers, including scientific publishers like Nature magazines, like The Economist and New Scientist, and newspapers like The Guardian and The Times, and also U.S. newspapers, is sentence-style capitalization in headlines, i.e. capitalization follows the same rules that apply for sentences. This convention is usually called sentence case. It may also be applied to publication titles, especially in bibliographic references and library catalogs. An example of a global publisher whose English language house style prescribes sentence case titles and headings is the International Organization for Standardization (ISO). For publication titles it is, however, a common typographic practice among both British and U.S. publishers to capitalize significant words, and in the United States this is often applied to headings, too. This family of typographic conventions is usually called title case. For example, R. M. Ritter's Oxford Manual of Style, 2002 suggests capitalizing the first word and all nouns, pronouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs, but generally not articles, conjunctions, and short prepositions. This is an old form of emphasis, similar to the more modern practice of using a larger or boldface font for titles. The rules which prescribe which words to capitalize are not based on any grammatically inherent correct-incorrect distinction, and are not universally standardized. They differ between style guides, although most style guides tend to follow a few strong conventions, as follows. Most styles capitalize all words except for short closed class words, certain parts of speech, namely articles, prepositions, and conjunctions, but the first word always and last word in many styles are also capitalized, regardless of their part of speech. Many styles capitalize longer prepositions such as between and throughout, but not shorter ones such as for and with. Typically, a preposition is considered short if it has up to 3 or 4 letters. A few styles capitalize all words in title case, the so-called start case, which has the advantage of being easy to implement and hard. Because of this rule's simplicity, software case folding routines can handle 95% or more of the editing, especially if they are programmed for desired exceptions such as FBI rather than FBI. As for whether hyphenated words are capitalized not only at the beginning but also after the hyphen, there is no universal standard. Variation occurs in the wild and among house styles, e.g. the letter case rule in my book, Short-Term Follow-Up Care for Burns. Traditional copy editing makes a distinction between temporary compounds, says many non-C novel instance compound modifiers, in which every part of the hyphenated word is capitalized, e.g. how this particular author chose to style his autumn apple-picking heading, and permanent compounds, which are terms that, although compound and hyphenated, are so well established. Title case is widely used in many English language publications, especially in the United States. However, its conventions are sometimes not followed strictly, especially in informal writing. In creative typography, such as music record covers and other artistic material, all styles are commonly encountered, including all lowercase letters and special case styles, such as Studley caps see below. For example, in the word marks of video games it is not uncommon to use stylized, uppercase letters at the beginning and end of a title, with the intermediate letters in small caps or lowercase, e.g. Arcani A, ARM A, and DMC. Multi-word proper nouns. Single-word proper nouns are capitalized in formal written English, unless the name is intentionally stylized, to break this rule, such as the first or last name of Dana Boyd. Multi-word proper nouns include names of organizations, publications, and people. Often the rules for title case described in the previous section are applied to these names, so that non-initial articles, conjunctions, and short prepositions are lowercase, and all other words are uppercase. For example, the short preposition of and the article the are lowercase in steering committee of the finance department. Usually only capitalized words are used to form an acronym variant of the name, though there is some variation in this. With personal names, this practice can vary. Sometimes all words are capitalized, regardless of length or function, but is not limited to English names. Examples include the English names Tamar of Georgia and Catherine the Great, Van and Der in Dutch names, Van and Zu in German, de las and Y in Spanish names, de or D in French names, and Ibn in Arabic names. Some surname prefixes also affect the capitalization of the following internal letter or word, for example Mac in Celtic names and Al in Arabic names. Unit symbols and prefixes in the metric system. In the International System of Units C, a letter usually has different meanings in upper and lower case when used as a unit symbol. Generally, unit symbols are written in lower case, but if the name of the unit is derived from a proper noun, the first letter of the symbol is capitalized. Nevertheless, the name of the unit, if spelled out, is always considered a common noun and written accordingly in lower case. For example, 1s 1 second when used for the base unit of time, 1s 1 Siemens when used for the unit of electric conductance and admittance named after Werner von Siemens. 1 SV1 sievert, used for the unit of ionizing radiation dose named after Rolf Maximilian Sievert. For the purpose of clarity, the symbol for liter can optionally be written in uppercase, even though the name is not derived from a proper noun. For example, 1 liter may be written as 1L, the original form, for typefaces in which digit 11, lowercase ll, and uppercase ii look different. 1L, an alternative form, for typefaces in which these characters are difficult to distinguish or the typeface the reader will be using is unknown. A script L in various typefaces, e.g., 1L has traditionally been used in some countries to prevent confusion. However, the separate Unicode character which represents this U plus 2113L script small l is deprecated by the C. Another solution sometimes seen in web typography is to use a serif font for lowercase l in otherwise sans serif material 1L. The letter case of a prefix symbol is determined independently of the unit symbol to which it is attached. Lowercase is used for all submultiple prefix symbols and the small multiple prefix symbols up to K for kilo, meaning 103 equals 1000 multiplier, whereas uppercase is used for larger multipliers, 1 ms, millisecond, a small measure of time m for milli, meaning 103 equals 1/1000 multiplier. 1 ms, megasecond, a large measure of time m for mega, meaning 106 equals 100 multiplier. 1 ms millisiemens, a small measure of electric conductance. 1 ms megasiemens, a large measure of electric conductance. 1 millimeter, a small measure of length. 1 megameter, a large measure of length. Use within programming languages. Some case styles are not used in standard English, but are common in computer programming, product branding, or other specialized fields. Camel case. Camel case, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, or the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Spaces and punctuation are removed, and the first letter of each word is capitalized. If this includes the first letter of the first word, camel case, PowerPoint, the quick, etc., the case is sometimes called upper camel case or, illustratively, camel case, Pascal case in reference to the Pascal programming language, initial caps, or bumpy case. When the first letter of the first word is lowercase iPod, eBay, the quick brown fox, the case is usually known as lower camel case or dromedary case, illustratively, dromedary case. This format has become popular in the branding of information technology products and services, with an initial I implying Internet ready, integrated with the Internet, or maybe intelligent. An initial E implying electronic with an inference to email, electronic mail, e-commerce, electronic commerce, or the Pete says of anything electronically arcing. The usage derives from how programming languages are parsed programmatically. They generally separate their syntactic tokens by simple white space, including space characters, tabs, and new lines. When the tokens, such as function and variable names, start to multiply in complex software development, and there is still a need to keep the source code human-readable, camel case is one convention which makes this possible. So, for example, a function dealing with matrix multiplication might formally be called sgem*, with the asterisk standing in for an equally inscrutable list of 13 parameters in BLAS. Multiply matrix by matrix X, matrix Y in some hypothetical higher-level manifestly typed language, broadly following the syntax of C++ or Java. Multiply matrix by matrix Y in something derived from Lisp, or perhaps multiply XY in the close, or some newer derivative language supporting type inference and multiple dispatch. In each case, the capitalization or lack thereof supports a different function. In the first, Fortran compatibility requires case-insensitive naming and short function names. The second supports easily discernible function and argument names and types within the context of an imperative, strongly typed language. The third supports the macro facilities of Lisp and its tendency to view programs and data minimalistically, and as interchangeable. The fourth idiom needs much less syntactic sugar overall because much of the semantics are implied, but because of its brevity and so lack of the need for capitalization or multipart words at all, might also make the code too abstract and overloaded for the common programmer to understand. Understandably, then, such coding conventions are highly subjective and can lead to rather opinionated debate, such as in the case of editor wars or those about indent style. Capitalization is no exception. Snake case, ache case. Snake case. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog punctuation is removed and spaces are replaced by single underscores. Normally, the letters share the same case, e.g., uppercase embedded underscore or lowercase embedded underscore, but the case can be mixed, as in camel modules. The style may also be called pothole case, especially in Python programming, in which this convention is often used for naming variables. Illustratively, it may be rendered snake case, pothole case, etc. When all uppercase, it may be referred to as screaming snake case or screaming snake case or hazard case. Kebab case. Kebab case, the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog, similar to snake case above, except hyphens rather than underscores are used to replace spaces. It is also known as spinal case, param case, Lisp case in reference to the Lisp programming language, or dash case, or illustratively as kebab case. If every word is capitalized, the style is known as train case, train case. Studley caps. Studley caps, e.g. t hecuic, kbrow and foxj umso vrthlazog, mixed case with no semantic or syntactic significance to the use of the capitals. Sometimes only vowels are uppercase, at other times upper and lower case are alternated, but often it is simply random. The name comes from the sarcastic or ironic implication that it was used in an attempt by the writer to convey their own coolness. It is also used to mock the violation of standard English case conventions by marketers in the naming of computer software packages, even when there is no technical requirement to do so, e.g. Sun Microsystems naming of a windowing system AWS. Illustrative naming of the style is, naturally, random, sint otherwise apps, sinted like PS, etc. Case folding and case conversion. In the character sets developed for computing, each upper and lower case letter is encoded as a separate character. In order to enable case folding and case conversion, the software needs to link together the two characters representing the case variants of a letter. Some old character encoding systems, such as the baudot code, are restricted to one set of letters, usually represented by the uppercase variants. Case-insensitive operations can be said to fold case from the idea of folding the character code table so that upper and lower case letters coincide. The conversion of letter case in a string is common practice in computer applications, for instance to make case-insensitive comparisons. Many high-level programming languages provide simple methods for case conversion, at least for the ASCII character set. Whether or not the case variants are treated as equivalent to each other varies depending on the computer system and context. For example, user passwords are generally case-sensitive in order to allow more diversity and make them more difficult to break. In contrast, case is often ignored in keyword searches in order to ignore insignificant variations in keyword capitalization, both in queries and queried material. Unicode case folding and script identification. Unicode defines case folding through the three case mapping properties of each character: uppercase, lowercase, and title case. In this context, title case relates to ligatures and digraphs encoded as mixed case single characters, in which the first component is in uppercase and the second component in lowercase. These properties relate all characters in scripts with differing cases to the other case variants of the character. As briefly discussed in Unicode Technical Note #26, in terms of implementation issues, any attempt at a unification of Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic would wreak havoc and make casing operations an unholy mess, in effect making all casing operations context-sensitive, in other words, while the shapes of letters like A, B, E, H, K, M, O, P, T, X, Y, and so on are shared between the Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic alphabets, and small differences in their canonical forms may be considered to be of a merely typographical nature, it would still be problematic for a multilingual character set or a font to provide only a single. Therefore, the corresponding Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic uppercase letters U plus 42, U plus 392, and U plus 412, respectively, are also encoded as separate characters, despite their appearance being basically identical. Without lettercase, a unified European alphabet such as ABD, IEZF, PH, Methods in word processing. Most modern word processors provide automated case conversion with a simple click or keystroke. For example, in Microsoft Office Word, there is a dialog box for toggling the selected text through uppercase, then lowercase, then title case. Actually start caps, exception words must be lowercased individually. The keystroke Shift plus F3 does the same thing. Methods in programming. In some forms of BASIC there are two methods for case conversion, C and C++, as well as any C-like language that conforms to its standard library, provide these functions in the file C-type. H-type, H. Case conversion is different with different character sets. In ASCII or EBCDIC, case can be converted in the following way. In C, this only works because the letters of upper and lower cases are spaced out equally. In ASCII they are consecutive, whereas with EBCDIC they are not. Nonetheless, the uppercase letters are arranged in the same pattern and with the same gaps as are the lowercase letters, so the technique still works. Some computer programming languages offer facilities for converting text to a form in which all words are capitalized. Visual Basic calls this proper case. Python calls it title case. This differs from usual title casing conventions, such as the English convention in which minor words are not capitalized. History. Originally, alphabets were written entirely in majuscule letters, spaced between well-defined upper and lower bounds. When written quickly with a pen, these tended to turn into rounder and much simpler forms. It is from these that the first minuscule hands developed the half-uncials and cursive minuscule, which no longer stayed bound between a pair of lines. These in turn formed the foundations for the Carolingian minuscule script, developed by Alcuin for use in the court of Charlemagne, which quickly spread across Europe. The advantage of the minuscule over majuscule was improved, faster readability. In Latin, papyri from Herculaneum, dating before 79 CE, when it was destroyed, have been found that have been written in Old Roman cursive, where the early forms of minuscule letters D, H, and R, for example, can already be recognized. According to papyrologist Nutcleve, the theory, then, that the lowercase letters have been developed from the 5th century uncials and the 9th century Carolingian minuscules seems to be wrong. Both majuscule and minuscule letters existed, but the difference between the two variants was initially stylistic rather than orthographic, and the writing system was still basically unicameral. A given handwritten document could use either one style or the other, but these were not mixed. European languages, except for ancient Greek and Latin, did not make the case distinction before about 1300. The timeline of writing in Western Europe can be divided into 4 eras. Greek majuscule 9th–3rd century BCE in contrast to the Greek uncial script 3rd century BCE 12th century CE, and the later Greek minuscule. Roman majuscule 7th century BCE 4th century CE in contrast to the Roman uncial 4th–8th century CE, Roman half-uncial, and minuscule. Carolingian majuscule 4th–8th century CE in contrast to the Carolingian minuscule around 780 12th century. Gothic majuscule 13th and 14th century in contrast to the early Gothic end of 11th to 13th century, Gothic 14th century, and late Gothic 16th century minuscules. Traditionally, certain letters were rendered differently according to a set of rules. In particular, those letters that began sentences or nouns were made larger, and often written in a distinct script. There was no fixed capitalization system until the early 18th century. The English language eventually dropped the rule for nouns, while the German language keeps it. Similar developments have taken place in other alphabets. The lowercase script for the Greek alphabet has its origins in the 7th century and acquired its quadrilinear form that is characterized by ascenders and descenders in the 8th century. Over time, uncial letter forms were increasingly mixed into the script. The earliest dated Greek lowercase text is the Uspensky Gospels MS 461 in the year 835. The modern practice of capitalizing the first letter of every sentence seems to be imported, and is rarely used when printing ancient Greek materials even today. Type cases. The individual type blocks used in hand typesetting are stored in shallow wooden or metal drawers known as type cases. Each is subdivided into a number of compartments, boxes for the storage of different individual letters. The Oxford Universal Dictionary on Historical Advanced Proportional Principles, reprinted 1952, indicates that case in this sense referring to the box or frame used by a compositor in the printing trade. Originally, one large case was used for each typeface, then divided cases, pairs of cases for majuscules and minuscules, were introduced in the region of today's Belgium by 1563, England by 1588, and France before 1723. The terms upper and lower case originate from this division. By convention, when the two cases were taken out of the storage rack and placed on a rack on the compositor's desk, the case containing the capitals and small capitals stood at a steeper angle at the back of the desk, with the case for the small letters, punctuation, and spaces being more easily reached at a shallower angle below it, to the front of the desk, hence upper and lower. Though pairs of cases were used in English-speaking countries and many European countries in the 17th century, in Germany and Scandinavia the single case continued in use. Various patterns of cases are available, often with the compartments for lowercase letters varying in size according to the frequency of use of letters, so that the commonest letters are grouped together in larger boxes at the center of the case. The compositor takes the letter blocks from the compartments and places them in a composing stick, working from left to right and placing the letters upside down with the nick to the top, then sets the assembled type in a galley.